Mommy, she's...
Mommy.
What is it? Why are you awake?
Auntie is calling my name.
Calling your name? From where?
She said if I don't come, she will come and carry me herself.
Daniel, come closer.
Herself.
What? Stay here.
Daniel, come closer.
What are you doing?
I was praying, Ma.
He answered.
Before the story continues, I want you to answer this honestly. Tell me the strangest thing a housemaid, nanny, or visitor ever did in your home. I will be reading every comment. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful folktale stories. Bye.
In a quiet compound in Ibadan, where the afternoons were hot and the nights carried a strange kind of silence, the Adeyemi family lived what many would call a normal life. Mr. Adeyemi worked long hours, and his wife Kemi ran a small business, struggling every day to balance work and raising their 2 children. Daniel, who was 7, and little Simi, just 4. They had tried housemaids before. One stole money, another ran away, and one even beat Daniel when no one was watching. So when the agent brought her,
Peace.
Kemi was already tired. The girl looked simple. Too simple. She wore a faded gown, carried a small bag,
and a Bible clutched tightly to her chest. "My name is Peace," she said, softly. She didn't look up much, didn't talk too much, didn't ask for anything. "I just want to serve God and help." Kemi liked her immediately. But Mr. Adeyemi was not so sure. "She looks too quiet," he said that night. Kemi sighed. "At least she is not rude. The last one nearly killed my child." Peace started work the next morning. At first, she was perfect. She woke up before everyone, cleaned the house, cooked, took care of the children gently, always smiling, always saying, "Yes, ma," always holding that Bible. But there was something small, easy to ignore. She prayed too much. Morning, afternoon, night, even midnight. At first, Kemi found it comforting. At least she fears God. But Daniel didn't like her. "She looks at me somehow," he said one evening. "How?" Kemi asked. Daniel hesitated, then said, Like she knows me." Kemi laughed. "Don't be silly." But that night, Daniel refused to sleep alone. It started small. The kind of things adults ignored. Little things. The kind that sounded too childish to be serious. One afternoon, Simi came quietly to her mother in the kitchen, holding the edge of her dress tightly. "Mommy," she said softly.
Auntie, Peace
Kemi barely looked
me.
up from the pot she was stirring.
Auntie,
"Yes?"
Peace pinch me.
"Auntie, Peace pinched me." Kemi sighed immediately. Not again. Before Kemi could even respond, Peace dropped the plate she was holding and quickly
knelt down on the kitchen floor, clutching her Bible tightly against her chest. "Ma, I would never do that." Kemi frowned at Simi. "Why are you lying?" Simi's small face fell instantly. "I'm not lying, Mommy." But Kemi was tired. Too tired. "All of you should let me rest." After that, Simi became quiet. But strange things continued happening around her. Sometimes, Kemi would find the little girl sitting alone in silence, staring at the wall. Sometimes, she refused to enter the kitchen if peace was inside. One evening, Kemi found Simi hiding behind the sofa. "What are you doing there?"
Come here.
Simi whispered softly. "Auntie said I should not touch her shadow." Kemi turned and froze slightly. Peace was standing in the hallway, watching them silently, smiling faintly. The next day, Daniel finally spoke to. "She warned me not to tell you," he whispered carefully. "She said bad things will happen if we talk too much." Kemi's patience snapped.
Both of you,
Enough! Both children went silent immediately. Peace walked slowly into the living room, her head bowed respectfully, Bible still in her hand. "Is there a problem, Ma?" Kemi forced a smile. "No." But for the first time, something inside her felt slightly uncomfortable. That night, something changed. Around midnight, Daniel woke up screaming. The sound shook the entire house. Kemi rushed into the room. Daniel sat upright on the bed, trembling violently. Sweat covered his body. "She was in my dream," he cried. "Who?" "Auntie Peace. She was calling me, telling me to follow her." Kemi forced herself to stay calm. It was only a dream. But Daniel shook his head immediately. "No, Mommy. She kept calling my name." But the next night, it happened again. And again. Every single night. Same dream. Same voice. Same whisper. "Daniel, come. Follow me." Soon, Daniel became afraid to sleep. The cheerful little boy slowly disappeared. Then the scratches appeared. Thin red marks across his back. Kemi's heart nearly stopped. "Jesus! Where did you get this from?" And then, Peace walked into the room. For 1 second, she froze. Then suddenly, she smiled softly again. "Children scratch themselves sometimes, Ma." Something about the way she said it felt wrong. Too calm. Too prepared. That night, Kemi could not sleep properly. Then suddenly, her eyes opened. 2:13 a.m. The room was dark and silent. And then, she heard it. Whispering. Low. Fast. Strange. She heard it clearly. Names. Children's names. Her children's names. Daniel. Simi. Again. And again. Cold fear crawled slowly into her stomach. She got out of bed quietly and followed the sound down the hallway. Then she reached the living room and froze. Peace was kneeling on the floor, facing the wall, completely still. The words sounded twisted, broken. Not English, not Yoruba, not any language Kemi had ever heard before. Then suddenly, Peace laughed softly. A slow, quiet laugh. Kemi stepped back immediately. Fear crawled into her chest. For the first time, this was no longer normal. The tension inside the house became unbearable. It no longer felt like a home. The laughter disappeared first. Daniel stopped playing football in the compound, stopped watching cartoons, stopped smiling. Most days, he simply sat quietly beside the window, staring outside like he was waiting for something nobody else could see. And Simi became unusually silent, too silent for a child her age. Sometimes
Simi,
Kemi would call
Simi,
her
look at
name
me.
3 times
Simi, please.
before the little girl
Simi.
answered. Sometimes she caught her whispering softly to herself in corners of the house. And every time Peace entered the room, both children became uncomfortable immediately. But Peace herself remained calm. Too calm. Always smiling softly. Always carrying that Bible. One hot afternoon, their neighbor, Mama Bisi, came visiting. Mama Bisi was the kind of woman who noticed things quickly. Nothing escaped her eyes. The moment Peace opened the gate for her, Mama Bisi paused, just for 1 second. Her smile faded slightly. Peace greeted respectfully. "Good afternoon, ma." But Mama
Good
Bisi
day,
did not answer
Mama Bisi.
immediately. Her eyes stayed fixed on Peace's face, watching, studying.
Then, Mama Bisi turned slowly toward Kemi.
Her eyes.
Where did you get this girl? Mama Bisi's face darkened.
Her eyes are not
Be
the
careful.
child.
That one? She glanced carefully toward the kitchen. Her eyes are not the eyes of a child. That night, Kemi made up her mind. Enough was enough. She needed proof. So, before going to bed, she hid her phone carefully behind a flower vase in the living room. The camera faced the center of the room perfectly. Then, she returned to bed, pretending to sleep. The house became quiet. Slowly, midnight passed. Then, 2:13 a.m.
Kemi opened her eyes immediately. Silence. Then, soft footsteps. Peace walked slowly out of her room, barefoot, Bible in hand. Her movements were unnaturally calm, almost practiced. Peace entered the living room, knelt down slowly, facing the wall again. And then it started, the whispering. Low, fast, distorted. Nothing about it sounded normal. Suddenly, Peace began mentioning names. Daniel, Simi, again and again. But then, Peace reached into her bag and brought out strange things. Small pieces of hair, children's clothes, tiny photographs, one of Daniel's socks, Simi's ribbon. Kemi felt her heartbeat stop for a second. This was not prayer. This was something else entirely. Something dark. Something evil. Then suddenly, Peace lifted her head slowly and smiled at the wall, as if someone was standing there with her. The next morning, Kemi could not hold herself anymore. What exactly are you doing in this house? Peace looked at her calmly. No fear, no surprise. Then slowly, she smiled. You brought me here, Ma. The room became silent. deadly silent. Peace stepped closer slowly. I came because of you. Something is following you, Ma. And I am the only one keeping it away. For one terrifying second, Kemi almost believed her. Almost. Then suddenly, a loud scream shattered the silence inside the house. Mommy!
What's wrong, Daniel?
Daniel was lying on the floor in the living room, his body shaking violently, and through trembling lips, he kept calling one name. Peace. 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 Everything fell apart that morning. Daniel's body would not stop shaking. Mr. Adeyemi carried him into the car while Kemi cried uncontrollably beside them. Peace stood near the gate, watching, quietly, still holding her Bible. And somehow, that frightened Kemi more than the screaming. The drive to the hospital felt endless. Daniel kept muttering words nobody understood, sometimes laughing weakly, sometimes whispering Peace's name. Then suddenly, the moment they entered the hospital compound, Daniel became calm. Completely calm. His body stopped shaking instantly. The doctors rushed him inside immediately. Tests were run. Blood tests, scans, everything. But nothing was found. Nothing. The doctor looked confused. He's perfectly fine. Kemi stared at Daniel in disbelief. The boy was sitting peacefully on the hospital bed, as if nothing had happened. For a moment, Kemi almost cried from relief. Maybe fear had entered their minds too deeply. Maybe all this truly was nothing. But the moment they returned home that evening, Daniel changed again. Immediately. The moment his feet crossed the entrance of the house, he froze. Daniel's expression became blank, cold. Then slowly, he turned towards the hallway, as if listening to someone invisible. Daniel? Kemi called nervously. The boy did not answer. Then suddenly, he smiled. A strange smile. Not his own. That night, Daniel spoke in his sleep. Sometimes softly. Sometimes aggressively. Sometimes not even in his own voice. She's still here. Kemi sat beside him trembling. Then Daniel whispered, she's still here. Kemi's blood ran cold instantly. Then another voice came from Daniel's lips. Older. Darker. Why did you send her away? That was the night Kemi finally broke. Completely. She fell to her knees beside the bed and began crying before God. Desperate prayer. For the first time in weeks, Kemi prayed with everything inside her. Not church prayer. Not polished prayer. A desperate mother's prayer. Mr. Adeyemi joined her quietly. And together, they prayed till morning. The next day, Kemi made her decision. This girl must leave. Mr. Adeyemi agreed immediately. No hesitation. Peace packed quietly. One small bag. One faded dress. One Bible clutched tightly against her chest. The children watched silently from the staircase. At the door, Peace stopped. Then slowly turned towards Kemi. You think sending me away will end it? Kemi shouted, Get out! Peace smiled softly, then whispered, It has already started. And she left. After Peace left, the house became quiet again. Real quiet. Daniel slept peacefully. Simi laughed again. For the first time in weeks, Kemi believed it was over. Until 3 nights later. 2:13 a.m. Kemi's eyes opened suddenly. Then she heard it. The whispering. Soft. Fast. Familiar. Kemi rushed towards the children's room. Daniel was asleep peacefully. But Simi was kneeling on the floor, facing the wall, whispering rapidly, exactly the same way Peace used to. Kemi screamed, "Simi!" The little girl turned slowly and smiled. The same soft smile.
I am praying.
Mommy, I am praying. Then Simi whispered softly. She said I should continue where she stopped. Kemi collapsed immediately.
Oh, my baby!
The next morning, Kemi found Peace's Bible hidden under the bed. Inside were photographs, pictures of her family, some taken before Peace ever entered their lives. Then at the final page, a handwritten note. Next, Simi. Silence. Then suddenly, from the children's room, Mommy. Kemi turned slowly and froze. Simi stood in the darkness, holding the Bible, smiling softly, exactly like Peace.
If you were Kemi, what would you have done differently? Do you think she made the right decision by sending Peace away? Or do you think the real danger had already entered the house? Tell me honestly in the comments. And if you love powerful African stories filled with suspense, emotion and mystery, don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on notifications because the next story might be even darker.